Now, it is true that when we're really harsh with ourselves, if we're cruel, if we expect perfectionism, that doesn't help us. That doesn't, that causes suffering. It doesn't alleviate it. But on the other hand, if we're kind of too soft on ourselves, and if we let ourselves get away with bad behavior, so to speak, that's not helping either.
Welcome to Zestful Aging, where I interview inspiring and influential guests who are making their mark on the world and contributing to the common good. Contributing to the common good in even the smallest of ways is one of the scientifically proven ways we can age with vitality and deep contentment. I'm your host, Nicole Christina, psychotherapist and fellow Zestful Ager, and my goal is to share optimism about aging and introduce you to guests who will excite and inspire you to share your own gifts and talents with the world. And to find out more about this podcast, my web courses, and my brand new book, Not Just Chatting, How to Become a Master Podcast Interviewer, hop on over to zestfulaging.com. And while you're there, sign up for my monthly email newsletter, The Insider, where you will get behind-the-scenes looks at my interviews and other fun tidbits, including many pictures of my new puppy, Frankie. Our music is courtesy of Judy Banker. Find out more at judybanker.com. Ever wonder what the host of Zestful Aging does when she's not podcasting? Creating one-of-a-kind earrings, of course. I've just opened an Etsy shop called Zestful Design. No S. And it showcases my fun, comfortable, and zesty polymer earrings. These earrings are fun to make and fun to wear. So check out my new shop, Zestful Design, on Etsy. And as usual, I have my loyal Jack Russell Sparky right by my side, and I am really looking forward to our interview today. You may have heard about the importance of self-compassion, but you're not really sure what it means in real life. Is it just a way of kind of getting away with bad behavior? Does it give us the green light to do whatever we want without consequences? Well, today I have the honor of speaking with Dr. Kristin Neff, who will explain the importance of self-compassion, the different kinds of self-compassion, and why it's important, especially for women. Kristin Neff is a pioneer in the field of self-compassion research, which began when she was a grad student and wanted to help herself in a dark period of her own life. We're going to talk about her new book, Fierce Self-Compassion, how women can harness kindness to speak up, claim their power, and thrive. Welcome to the show, Kristin.
Oh, hello. Thank you so much for having me.
I'm really excited to have this conversation. It seems particularly relevant with all of the pain around us currently. But let me start by asking you, what are the biggest misconceptions about self-compassion?
Right. So, compassion is, in the science world, is basically defined as concern with the alleviation of suffering. And so self-compassion just means concern with alleviating our own suffering, being well, helping ourselves. But for whatever reason, people often hear the word compassion and they just think, oh, go easy on yourself. Don't give yourself a break. Now, it is true that when we're really harsh with ourselves, if we're cruel, if we expect perfectionism, that doesn't help us. That doesn't, that causes suffering. It doesn't alleviate it. But on the other hand, if we're kind of too soft on ourselves, and if we let ourselves get away with bad behavior, so to speak, that's not helping either. So people kind of get confused about that, and they think it's being soft, being weak, giving up, being complacent. If it's anything but, it makes us strong, healthy, more able to get things done. But we do it from a place of care, not from a feeling of inadequacy.
Mm-hmm. Very different. Would you, I know that your book is geared towards women, and you've spoken about why women are particularly bad at this. What are, just not to put too fine a point on it, but what's your theory about why we're so reluctant to be self-compassionate?
Yeah, well, and also my new book, there's really at least two different forms of self-compassion. There's more the nurturing, tender side of self-compassion, which is all about self-acceptance. But when it comes to our behaviors or maybe the situations we find ourselves in, sometimes we need to take action to alleviate our suffering and to be well, right? So just because we accept ourselves doesn't mean we want to accept our behaviors if they're actually harmful. So I call them the tender and fierce sides of self-compassion. And so what we know is that women are a little bit less self-compassionate than men, even though they're more compassionate to others. And that's because even though compassion is part of the female gender role, right? So 85% of the people who come to my workshops are women. And yet that compassion, we're raised to believe that we should be compassionate to others, not ourselves, right? We're told our needs don't count. We don't feel as entitled to meet our own needs as men might. So that's one of the reasons women need it more, because of this socialization for self-sacrifice. But it's especially relevant for the fierce action side of self-compassion, right? Women are told just to kind of, be nice, not to get angry, not to speak up. And in fact, if we're too powerful or too agentic, people can often dislike us for being so. So for a woman, a really important part of being self-compassionate is choosing to be our full, authentic selves, which means speaking up, which means claiming our power. It means sometimes getting angry if the anger is serving the purpose of alleviating suffering. And it also means, being willing to risk other people liking us and really saying what's really important is that I'm authentic and I like myself. And so the socialization, everyone needs self-compassion. Both men and women need both fierce and tender. We need to be in balance. But you might say the blocks to self-compassion are slightly different if you've been socialized to be female as opposed to male. And by the way, it's not real gender. It's just gender socialization.
Well, that was going to be my question is, it sounds like what you're saying is there's no evolutionary reason for women to be more self-sacrificing. It's all about socialization.
Yeah, so there may be some slight biological role associated with things like testosterone, which might, which kind of can lead us to be more agentic, and maybe oxytocin, which leads to maybe be more nurturing. But what we know is that the differences are small, and they also interact with socialization. So for instance, a female's testosterone levels raise when she acts out firing someone. And a man's oxytocin levels are raised when he cuddles a child. So there may be some small biological differences, but they're small. They're greatly exacerbated by socialization. And of course, differences within genders are much bigger than differences between genders.
That's very interesting and a very important point, I think, because I think many people believe that women are just naturally meant to be all nurturing all the time.
Right. Yeah. So, again, there may be some biological tendency, but it's greatly exacerbated by gender roles. There's nothing biological about the fact that women do most of the housework and most of the childcare while also holding full-time jobs.
Yes.
That's just plain old patriarchy.
Yep. Plain old patriarchy.
Let's call it like it is.
That's right. That's exactly it. Hi, listeners. A quick interruption to tell you about a powerful tool I actually rediscovered after 15 years that will help you with stress, anxiety, and depression. I'm talking about the meditations from Health Journeys created by trauma expert Belaruth Naparstak. When I had to have major surgery many years ago, I listened to these meditations and it was enormously helpful. Health Journeys meditations are a little different than the run-of-the-mill meditations that you can find on apps. They're scientifically created and are used in over 3,000 1,000 hospitals. I highly recommend them and I use them myself. You can go to zestfulaging.com or NicoleChristina.com and you will see a direct link. I hope you find them helpful and I'm interested in your experience. Now back to the show. You know, as a clinician, and I have a specialty in eating disorders, so perfectionism is kind of always here in the session. I'm wondering about how you make inroads with people who just, this is such a foreign concept. They are, I'm thinking about some clients who just look at me like, what are you talking about? That it seems so foreign and seems so wrong in a way. And what I'm wondering about is certainly there's many people who are not coming to see therapists who also really are perfectionistic, who are super hard on themselves. I see people who, and I'm sure you would agree, who especially have made a lot of, they've been very successful academically or in their profession, and there's a real resistance. How do you work with that?
Yes. Well, so a lot of it is awareness. I mean, and it is true that some people do successfully motivate themselves with self-criticism, but there are a lot of unintended negative side effects. So for instance, anxiety, right? So when you're super anxious, you might start fearing failure. You might start procrastinating. You might start being less willing to take risks. Another big problem with self-criticism is if when you fail, you beat yourself up, it actually undermines your ability to learn from your failure. In order to learn from our failure, we need to see it clearly. Oh, I see what went wrong. We need kind of that calm space of mind to be able to learn. If we're full of shame, well, shame and self-criticism actually shut down our ability to learn because we're just distracted by the storyline of how worthless we are. And so what the research shows very clearly is that self-compassion is a more effective motivator than self-criticism. Right? We still want to achieve our goals, but not because we're inadequate. Again, just because we care and we want to achieve our goals. And if we don't, if we fall short, then we can say, okay, well, that's only human. It's to be expected. What can I learn from this? And that reduces performance anxiety. It leads to more ability to try again, less procrastination, less fear of failure, more learning goals, and more grit. Right. So these are all the things, these are the things we need to be motivated. And self-compassion directly feeds the ability to have, learning goals as opposed to performance goals, growth mindset, grit, keep on trying. It's okay. It's part of the process. But people don't know that, which is kind of why that's why I need to keep repeating myself.
Yes, but there's a practical aspect to this. It's not just a lovely concept.
No, exactly. And the way people really become convinced is when they try it out for themselves. They could read the research till till the cows come home, but it's really not until you see within yourself that it works that people are really going to make a change. And also a really important thing is for people to tune in to the costs of their self-criticism. Like usually when I teach a workshop, one of the first practices I'll do is have people think of a time when a friend has come to them who is maybe feeling badly about themselves or failed or made a mistake. What did you say to your friend? And then think about yourself, a similar situation. What did you say to yourself? And then just, what would happen to my friend if I said to my friend the things I say to myself? It probably wouldn't be very helpful.
No.
But then what might happen if you said to yourself the things you more naturally say to a friend? And, actually, that'd be a lot more helpful. So the nice thing about self-compassion is it feels foreign, but we actually know very well how to do it for other people. So we're kind of doing a little hack. We're tapping into the system that's been developed to care for others and using it to care for ourselves. But it's not rocket science. Again, we know how to do it. We aren't used to doing it. We don't give ourselves permission to do it. So once we do, it's actually not that difficult to make the change.
It's interesting. I can imagine, and I'm sure I've said this to clients before. Well, we know you're not quite there yet, but what would it look like?
Right.
if you were self-compassionate, and just to see the difference and that there are options,
Yes.
and how helpful they can be. Just anecdotally, I'm a pretty active tennis player in my over 55 league, and there's certain players who have reputations that once they double fault, or once they are starting to play poorly, we know that they are going to go down that spiral because
Yes.
they're in that, like, you're terrible. Oh, you're, they say terrible. I'm just disgusted. I'm horrified. And we can watch them kind of implode. And it's a real part of the game now, where we know if you can get someone starting down that negative path, you have a super advantage because you just let them do what they're doing to themselves.
Yeah, actually, I have a dissertation student now. She's developed an adaptation of the Mindful Self-Compassion program I developed with a colleague. It's for athletes, and it's called Fail Better. In other words, as an athlete, you're constantly failing. Are you going to fail in a productive way or a non-productive way? So criticism, gets you off your game and undermines you. But if you have compassion, okay, everyone fails. What can I learn from this? And it really is supportive and encouraging. It actually allows you to turn your failure into successes and learning experiences.
Yes, but awareness is so important because you have to know that you're doing it, right? To step back and say, let me try something different.
Yeah. And you asked me, how do you get people to make that shift? Often if you can tune people in to the pain, right? So even if you start giving yourself compassion for the pain of self-criticism, that's a really good place to start, right? What's really hurting right now? Well, often what hurts the most is the feelings of shame and self-criticism that they do to themselves. So if you get them to feel some compassion or recognition, first of all, validating the pain with mindfulness. This is hard. This hurts. Being aware of it. Remembering that, they aren't alone. This is part of life. It's not like they're the only people who shame and criticize themselves. This is a very human pattern. So they don't have to feel alone and isolated by it. But then being willing to try out, well, what would happen if I was kind to myself? Maybe kind even about my self-criticism. Then I don't have to be so trapped by it, and maybe I can try something different. And allow it to be awkward for a while. So it's awkward. So what? After a while, it starts to feel more normal.
Right. What's it like for you to teach this in an academic setting? What are some of the responses you get from your students?
Oh, well, it's great. I'm so privileged. I teach an undergraduate class in mindfulness and self-compassion. And I get a lot of really good feedback. Actually, a lot of students have said that this has actually been the most impactful course they've taken in college. I mean, obviously, it's not to say that other things aren't equally important. I think it just points to the fact that emotional intelligence is often neglected. We don't actually teach people explicit skills to how to be emotionally intelligent and work productively with stuff of human life. And so people get a lot out of it. So it's although I am retiring at the end of this year from academia, though, because the self-compassion work is taking up so much time. I don't really have the time to do what I would like in terms of mentoring students, going to conferences, writing papers. So I'm going to transition. It's been 20 years, and I'm going to focus more just on writing and teaching self-compassion out there in the world more generally.
So you'll leave the university?
Yeah, I'll be emeritus, hopefully. So, I'll still have some hand in.
Nice, yeah.
But yeah, it's when being a professor becomes your part-time side gig, that's not.
You're way too busy.
Maybe a bit too busy. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, and you've teamed up with people like Tara Brach.
Yes, well, yeah. I mean, somewhat. Tara's a friend of mine. She's a real mentor. I just admire her so much. But I've done some stuff with her, and but the main thing is with Chris Germer, my close colleague. We developed the Mindful Self-Compassion program, and we created a nonprofit called the Center for Mindful Self-Compassion, and it's just really taking off now. Adapting it, for athletes, for men, for teens, for children, for parents, for couples, for teachers. There's so many adaptations of the self-compassion work to help particular types of suffering related to whatever your situation in life is. And that's just so exciting and where I want to be able to spend more of my energy and time.
Are you seeing this as a skill that we should start very, very young for our children?
Yeah, absolutely. I think ideally, as soon as children start to learn about friendship, they understand that that also means being a good friend to yourself. So whether it's children, whether it's medical people training to be doctors, whatever it is, I think it will get there eventually, just the way people are realizing that mindfulness is an essential skill, that self-compassion, being supportive, kind, willing to help yourself is going to help you almost no matter what you're doing. So I hope it starts becoming a more explicit form of training in education at all levels.
Yeah, I'm aware of the program in Oakland where instead of detention, the students will get mindfulness training.
Yes,
And that's been so helpful.
Yes.
It makes a lot of sense. Where can people find out more about your work, Kristin?
Well, the easiest place to start, if you just Google self-compassion, all the algorithms lead to my website, self-compassion.
That's very
I got in early, so selfcompassion.org. And I've videos. You can take a self-compassion test to see where you are. I've got lots of practices, guided audio practices that you can listen to. I've got research if you want to read some of the research. It's really the place to start. And you can also link from there to the Center for Mindful Self-Compassion website, which is really the place to take online training. So it's all easy now. It's available.
Yeah, exactly. And just some feedback. One of my clients is using your audio. Is it a guided imagery on caregiving? And finding it very helpful.
Nice, yeah.
So
it works. That's the reason. It's the message. It's not the messenger. It's just it works. That's why people are interested in it. It works.
Right. Yeah. And then your book, obviously, they can find throughout one of these roads that lead to these websites.
I actually have 4 books out now, believe it or not. I've got my first book, Self-Compassion, and I've got the newest book, Fierce Self-Compassion, which is written for women, but men benefit from it as well. But it's really because it kind of talks about unraveling gender socialization, which gets in women's way. But we also have the Mindful Self-Compassion workbook. You can actually go through the entire Mindful Self-Compassion program yourself in workbook format. And we also have a guide for professionals, for instance, therapists wanting to integrate this stuff into their practice. So, I've been busy.
Definitely look at, and I can see that, and I know that this image of the mother bear with fierceness and tenderness has really been a lovely way to think about this. Very helpful for some of my clients as well. Well, that is it just sounds so important. Anything you'd like to add before we wrap it up today that I haven't asked?
Well, I guess maybe the thing we didn't touch on, but it's so important, is emotional resilience. We talked a bit about motivation, but the other thing that the research really shows clearly is that self-compassion allows you to deal with the difficulties and challenges of life without being overwhelmed. So it reduces burnout, it reduces PTSD, it reduces depression, it reduces anxiety. So typically when negative emotions come up or negative experiences come up, we don't support ourselves. We fall into some habits which can actually exacerbate our suffering. So self-compassion in many ways is a way for us to deal with the difficult stuff of life in a way that's much healthier, and it leads to better mental health.
That's a pretty important point. So thank you for adding that, particularly now. I think that is...
Yeah, given the pandemic and the other things. There's research showing people with more self-compassion have coped better with the pandemic, just to give one example. So it's a really important coping mechanism.
Yeah, and I'm thinking that if you're not self-compassionate, there's a much more stress activated and
Yes.
cortisol and inflammation and all that
Yes.
leads to. Wow, this is so important. Kristin, thanks for, I know how busy you are. I so appreciate you taking time out. And it was lovely to speak with you again.
Same here. Happy to talk. Thanks.
Thank you so much for joining us on Zestful Aging. If you like the podcast, please share it with some of your friends. I love to hear from my listeners. Send me an email at NicoleChristina.com. It's no secret that everyone's feeling pretty restless and unsettled right now. Our lives are upside down, and the future is feeling pretty uncertain. But if you're anything like me, organizing my stuff can help me feel a little calmer. It's something I can do to help me feel a little more in control and in charge of my own life. If you think decluttering could help you feel better and you could use a little assistance with that, check out the online course I've developed with professional organizer and designer Carrie Luderin. It's called Too Much Stuff. And Too Much Stuff is different from other courses or articles or guidance you may have used up. We give you clear steps to deal with the clutter and the tools to help you face the overwhelming feelings and the emotions that come up when we're going through our clutter. And a lot of those emotions are just feeling anxious or guilty or just basically flooded with a lot of different confusing feelings. The course is really practical, it's realistic, the lessons are short and punchy, and they're really manageable. We're not trying to set you up for some long exploratory, super in-depth, burdensome experience. We want something really helpful for you right now. We all need help with our anxiety. So being surrounded by more calm and less chaos can really help. So now's a good time to clear out the clutter so we can focus on what's really important in our lives. So find out more at zestfulaging.com. You'll see more about this under the web courses tab. If you have any questions, just shoot me an email at zestfulaging@gmail.com. Thanks so much. And stay tuned next week for another interview with a fascinating and inspiring guest.